that, let us bring in Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner. He's an IDF spokesperson, joins us now. Lieutenant Colonel Lerner, what is the latest intel indicating about the rocket strike on that hospital?
Thanks, Todd. Great to be here. I would say our intelligence, our investigation, our initial high-level investigation revealed that the IDF did not conduct any strikes. We based that fact on three principles. First of all, there was no active operations by the IDF at that time. No airstrikes, no ground strikes, and no naval strikes. Second, we revealed our radars that tracked the trajectory of the rockets that were being launched out of Gaza that crossed just over the hospital, the Al Ahli hospital. And third, we intercepted, our intelligence intercepted a call taking place between two Hamas terrorists that actually named the hospital and said that it was hit by a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket. So we're confident in our intelligence, in our information. We know that there was a very huge dramatic event yesterday. The images of civilians are indeed heart-wrenching and heartbreaking, but it wasn't our doing. It was a Palestinian rocket fired and hitting Palestinian people. Unfortunately, so much of the world media prematurely reported it and named the IDF and the Israeli Air Force as conducting an airstrike. It just goes to show the importance of professional media coverage, of fact-checking. You cannot let Hamas dictate the narrative, the scene, set the scene. We just can't let that happen. And this is why we're revealing all of this, sometimes even at the potential threat that we might jeopardize our assets.
Lieutenant Colonel, are you worried that this hospital strike will make the situation even worse for the hostages? I
think what could be even worse than being held by hostage by Hamas, this ruthless terrorist organization. Hamas knows it wasn't an Israeli strike. You all know Israel does not target hospitals. Yeah. We don't do that. So Hamas knows it for a fact. We heard the conversation. We've distributed this widespread to the media. You can find it on our social media platforms as well. This conversation between two Hamas terrorists saying, "Oh no, we hit the Al Ahli hospital." So I don't think that that's the relevant question about the hostages. The hostages need to be returned. There are 199 people with their families torn to pieces about and distraught with stress and frustration and concern for their families, for their brothers, for their sisters, for their grandmothers, and Holocaust survivors. All of those people that have been abducted.
You have this audio recording, and you've already released it. And now the question becomes, how do you convince the rest of the Arab world that this was not an Israeli airstrike? Because this will be used to spark greater conflict in the region.
Yeah, this is the challenge. This is the challenge we face. And this is exactly what Hamas is doing to mobilize and manipulate the Arab world. Indeed, the messages will be going out. We've distributed all of the information also in Arabic so that the Arabic world can indeed understand. And of course, our diplomats will be doing their job, engaging. I'm confident that we will be sharing it, obviously, with our colleagues and allies from the US, the defense establishment. They will get our information, our intelligence. We will share it with them. We're pretty confident that that message will reverberate. Keeping in mind, I've been around the block a few times and this is the first time we've been able, in a relatively short time, to get such a high-level investigation on such an important issue in the space of a conflict, of an ongoing war. And I think this is really, it's a point of much credit for the IDF, and it needs to be applauded. And indeed, when we move forward, we have to be very, very cautious about everything Hamas is saying. They are, these people, they butcher babies in their bedroom. They wouldn't have a problem lying to an international media outlet.
Yes. Speaking of moving forward, all eyes now in anticipation of the ground invasion whenever it may happen. But an IDF spokesman saying, quote, "We are preparing for the next stages of war. We haven't said what they will be. Everyone's talking about the ground offensive. It might be something different." Lieutenant Colonel, what could that something different be?
I think that is a broad misquote of what perhaps one of my colleagues said. We are preparing for a ground mobilization. We need to be prepared for that. There's the toolbox of the IDF includes many things, including aerial assaults, ground assaults, naval assaults, extensive striking, precision identification of specific terrorists that have been involved. We will defeat Hamas. We will utilize all of the tools that we have in order to implement the directives given to us by the government to make sure Hamas can never come into our bedrooms and butcher our babies ever again.
That said, Lieutenant Colonel, why hasn't the ground offensive begun yet?
No, the ground offensive is just one tool. It needs to be prepared. It needs to, if and when we're instructed to do so, it will be in accordance to our battle rhythm and in accordance to the military operations, but also the international political interests and achievements we intend to gain. Clausewitz said that military and war is political intercourse by other means. So in order to achieve the political goals and go on, and there is a time frame that we need to conduct this. I think we need to be very, very cautious at sitting there with our stopwatches saying, when is this going to happen? How is it going to happen? We need to be patient. We are very, there's a plan of action. If the mobilization does take place, we will obviously be announcing it and you'll be able to see it. But that's an if. And it is all dependent, of course, on the government's directive.
Absolutely. There are just so many unknowns right now. And one of the big ones is if you're going to be fighting a 1 or 2 front war. And then what happens if Syria becomes involved as well? I mean, Israel is one of the greatest fighting forces in the world. I don't need to convince you of that. But does Israel have the capability? And I also mean just the stuff, the material, the weapons to take on multiple fronts.
Carly, the IDF is a very strong military. We are prepared to fight, if needs be, on 2 fronts or multi-fronts. The land operation, if it is implemented in Gaza, is a challenge. Hezbollah is a challenge, but our confidence is based on 2 core components: our professional capabilities, but also the civil cohesion around Israel, around our people. I'm a reservist. They called me in. I dropped my everything. Yeah. I gave my wife a kiss on her forehead as I left home on the 11th on the 8th of October, and I said goodbye to my daughter. And I came to the military because that's when we are in a state of war, when a terrorist can come into my house and butcher my baby, I have no other choice. So the society here is very strong, and the military is emboldened and powered by that. We have to be very, very clear. An unfathomable attack that was conducted by Hamas, it can never, ever be the norm of terrorism that we accept. We can't accept terrorism full stop. And the magnitude of this attack can never be accepted anywhere in the world. And I would say decent people know that. Decent people are standing with Israel now.
As you look live at your screen right now, the presidential motorcade taking President Biden through the streets of Tel Aviv. And Lieutenant Colonel, you gave a spectacular answer in explaining why you do not believe a ground offensive has begun yet. It was thorough. It was to the point. But there's a narrative out there as we watch these pictures of the President of the United States driving in Israel. There's a narrative out there that the IDF is waiting for President Biden to leave before beginning that ground offensive. How do you respond to that?
Well, we have to keep in mind that, of course, there is, as I said, political interests beyond the military interests, and those two need to complement one another. I can't really confirm that that's the situation on the ground, and indeed, we are very cautious and we are listening to what our American allies are saying. We have, and President Biden has been very, very vocal about supporting Israel, and indeed, we are listening to our American allies. So when we look forward, we are focused on our mission. As the meetings take place, we will continue to destroy Hamas's capability, target their leaders, and disrupt any actions that they are trying to conduct. Their rockets are 450 of their rockets launched at us in the last 12 days landed in Gaza. We saw what happens when one of them hits a hospital. We're not doing those types of actions. We're very much focused, and while the politics and the diplomacy is happening, we are continuing our military operation.
Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel, it's hard to imagine being in your shoes. right now? I mean, like you said, you told that story about kissing your wife and going to war. And I know that you were a reservist, and I don't know if you ever thought that this situation would unfold certainly as rapidly as it is right now, and the horrors that occurred just over a week ago are still so raw and will probably forever be. So what is your hope? What is your expectation for what Israel will look like in 10 years' time?
Well, I'm not a prophet. I can say I was in the Ichilov hospital, and I met survivors who had been at the music festival, and I met a soldier that had been called to operate, a special forces soldier that had been called to operate in southern Israel in the aftermath of the attack. He was wounded and shot in the neck. And what I saw is young men, young women with a passion of life. And that, I think, exemplifies Israel. That is, we are a young but old nation. We are a powerful military, a professional military that is dependent on the people of Israel. And when I said to my wife, they're calling me, I have to go, she didn't question that. She said, yeah, you have to go and do your thing. You have to go and, reflect what is going through Israel on these days. So 10 years down the line, I probably couldn't answer that. We need to live in peace. We need to find that peace, but it needs to be peace from a position of strength, of security and coexistence and mutual respect. Unfortunately, Hamas terrorists are not a partner for any of those things. They still want to do diabolical acts. They are still holding 199 hostages. The unfathomable terrorist attack against our people 12 days ago will be a blemish on the history of mankind, and it has done a huge disservice to the Palestinian people as well.
I think the will of the Israeli people that you just described has been echoed throughout our coverage over the last week and a half by Trey Yingst, because on multiple occasions when we asked what is the mood of the Israeli soldiers, in fact, he said they are scared. They know what is coming. They know that the fight will be very, very difficult, very, very bloody, and deaths and casualties will occur. But they are so united because this isn't a war in a foreign land. This is visceral. This happened less than 10 days ago. To your point, coming into your home, killing your child. That creates something in all of us, especially the Israeli people who have been under fire for decades, if you will. And I think that notion of, like Carly and you highlighted, you kissing your wife, you don't want to leave her, but you have to leave her because this is the mission to defend not only your wife, not only your children, but the entire Israeli people.
I agree.
And it's a testament to you, and it's a testament to the people. The numbers that we are seeing now, 360,000 up to 400,000 IDF soldiers ready to engage in a fight. Is that number still accurate? Is it plus or minus? What do you know?
No, so it's around 300,000 people that have reported for duty. They are dispersed both on the front with Gaza, obviously preparing for a ground maneuvering, ground mobilization. They include across all of the services. So we have Navy, Air Force, and ground forces, the Home Front Command, offensive capabilities, defensive capabilities. But they're also for the Northern Front, for the arena with Hezbollah and potentially on the border with Lebanon. You asked about what is the potential of a two-front war. Hezbollah, we've seen them escalating over the last few days. Now, every single day they're firing anti-tank guided missiles towards troops on the border. They've killed soldiers, they've killed civilians. Doing so, we've responded in kind and then some. We won't take that. We won't accept that to be a reality. And yes, we've evacuated 28 communities across the border, across the frontier, because that's what we do. We take care of our people. We get them out of harm's way.